This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode number 50. A little milestone for the boys here at Winnipeg Sports Talk and Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Great to have you with us. Hope you had an awesome weekend. And the wait is over, everybody. The Stanley Cup Playoffs are underway, although we've got a couple more days to chew on this Oilers Jets matchup before the puck drops on Wednesday night between Winnipeg and Edmonton in northern Alberta. We've got a great show today. Really, this entire week is going to be mostly on Jets Oilers and the rest of the Stanley Cup Playoffs. And to get ready for the series, our good friend Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press will join us in 15 minutes or so. And coming up a little later on in the program, Andrew Copp of the Winnipeg Jets joins us live to look ahead to maybe the toughest assignment in hockey going up against Connor McDavid. But man, cannot wait for it. The weather is gorgeous, warming up big time in southern Manitoba, just in time for us to enjoy some playoff hockey. I have a feeling a few of you maybe brought the TV out to the deck on Saturday and Sunday, and what a start to the playoffs. 4 amazing hockey games, 3 of them go to overtime, and maybe the best one of them all last night between Tampa and Florida. We'll get to all of that coming up a little bit later on. As always, big thanks to our sponsors, Not AutoCorp, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Little Brown Jug Brewing, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club, Coolbet Canada, and Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Let's get Michael Remis in here to get things going. The big 5-0 for Winnipeg Sports Talk. And, you're just checking out Andrew Copp's NFT beforehand?
Sorry,
there was a lot of NFT talk before the show, before we had Copp come on a little bit later on
That's
today.
later. That's for when Andrew comes on. I didn't mean for that to be there. Yes, that was Andrew Copp's NFT. I'm sure we'll ask him about that. He's got some kind of sale going on this website, OpenSea, where you can create digital artwork and put it up for grabs. So that's for later. What were you saying before that? I got distracted by his 4-goal. The NFT celebrating his 4-goal game, by the way. Because if you score a 4-goal game, as Joe Thornton said famously, you got to celebrate that thing, right?
Yeah, that's a little different than Joe Thornton's proposed celebration. But coming in and just kind of mentioning what an awesome weekend it was for the Stanley Cup Playoffs. I can't imagine things getting going in a much more exciting fashion than 3 overtime games. And then an absolute classic last night in Game 1 of the Sunshine State battle between the Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, Battle of Florida. Who knew, Huss? The kind of bad blood, and we kind of saw that near the end of the regular season. And what a game yesterday, back and forth, a ton of goals. That is the game you want to see. And Tampa Bay looking to defend their Stanley Cup. And do they have an advantage, Huss? What is their salary? 17 mil over the cap right now? So I've seen some people upset about it. Some people saying, hey, you know what? They're just playing by the rules the NHL gave them. Screw the other teams who haven't taken advantage of that this year. So what a series. We've had every game, as you said. We almost had 3 overtimes yesterday, one of them ending in the dying minutes of the third. Incredible day of hockey, and we haven't even started the North Division playoffs yet. We're still waiting for those pesky Calgary, Vancouver. You mean after that Florida-Tampa game last night, you weren't staying up even later for the Calgary, Vancouver?
I must be one of the only people that are sick enough to still be paying attention to the Flames and the Vancouver Canucks. I'm in a season-long playoff hockey draft. And I got 3 points last night from Quinn Hughes. I got a point from McDavid on Saturday. And I'm now 4 points back of my buddy Dom with 2 more games. And Calgary essentially shutting it down. So I mean, even that game was exciting last night, Reem. Vancouver came back from being down 5-1, forced it to OT, and lost 6-5 in overtime. I mean,
That's awesome.
it was one of the great days of hockey. Yes, that was sort of a strange dessert, if you will, after the main course of Florida and the Lightning to get a regular season game between Calgary and Vancouver. But even though those teams got it. But, I mean, let's take it back to Saturday's game, Boston and Washington starting off right off the bat. And, I mean, that was a hell of a first game of the playoffs. Of course, goes to overtime. Washington gets that big win. And I know there was a lot of people on Boston. Boston, despite being the third-place team, was a pretty heavy favorite in the series and in the game that night. But obviously, this is going to be a very tough out. I will say this. The thing that stuck out to me the most about that game, Remis, I turn it on in the second period, and I'm like, who the hell is that playing goal for Washington?
Yes.
Did you even know that Craig Anderson was on the Capitals? I'll be honest, hand up. I had no clue. Or maybe I remembered him signing in January, whatever, to be a third-string goalie, but I had not seen him at once this season. He apparently got into 4 games. But when the starter got hurt early on, lo and behold, there's Craig Anderson, 40 years old, getting the first playoff win of the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Pretty wild.
Yes, crazy. So yeah, their goalie, who is it, Shesterkin? I'm confusing all these goalies. Their main goalie's got COVID. Vanacek's the backup, but their main guys got COVID. Samsonov, thank you. I got the Russian one confused from the Rangers. Samsonov, he's got COVID, so there's Craig Anderson, the backup. They signed him back when Lundqvist, announced he was having surgery and had to sit out the year. So they needed another veteran. Craig Anderson was hanging out, comes in. That's an awesome story, man.
I love Craig Anderson. I think he is just, what he went through in Ottawa, to get an opportunity to be with a quality team like Washington, just to be in the playoffs is great. And to, get in there and get a win right off the bat, a pretty cool story. And I got to tell you, Reem, we've spent most of this season watching the North Division. I mean, obviously we've seen some of Washington, but man, was it weird seeing Zdeno Chara going up against his old team wearing the Washington Capitals uniform and then, going at it against Boston. And, I'll be honest, I'm sure it's pretty weird for the Boston Bruins players to be going up against Chara. Now, again, they would have played quite a bit in the regular season, so it's not new, but the first time the Bruins have gone to battle in the playoffs without their longtime captain, and now they're seeing him on the other side of the rink.
Yeah, just another one of those guys has, a veteran player who wants to keep going, and you see him in another jersey. I know Chara was on Ottawa, but he really made his name as a Bruin. Won the Stanley Cup with the Bruins. They went to a Cup final, and you see Chara. You think Boston Bruins, and to see him it's just weird in the playoffs. It's like we saw it last year. In football with Tom Brady putting on the Bucs jersey. I mean, you see it more and more. I mean, it's not quite Marty Brodeur in a Blues jersey because that didn't last very long. But there's Chara. He's on Washington, making an impact. And I agree. Some of the numbers I saw. I was looking at Dom's predictions. He had Boston as I think it was 66 to 33% favorite. Mm-hmm. So Washington, big underdog, but they get game 1, and we'll try to keep it going in game 2. But Washington, they're tough. They've won a cup before. A lot of those guys. There was Tom Wilson's everyone's favorite guy getting on the score sheet, has scoring the opening goal and assisting on the overtime winner. That is the guy you want on your team in the playoffs, even though he does dumb stuff. You got to. Playoff hockey, as we saw this weekend, it's not even the same game as regular season hockey. It's a different sport. And we're hoping we can see some of that from the Jets on Wednesday against the Oilers because, they've lost 6 in a row. And the guys who you want in the Jets playing playoff hockey, Adam Lowry, we saw that one since he returned. He's been throwing his weight around. And Pierre-Luc Dubois, the guy, last year for Columbus, going hard on Austin Matthews. We'll talk later with Jeff Hamilton, but he was banged up, in the finale and hasn't skated since.
Yeah, and was not out on the ice today at practice. And, we'll get into this a little later on with Jeff when he joins us, when we speak about all the stories coming out of practice today and heading into game 1. But I'm very concerned about Pierre-Luc Dubois. If anyone has the game PVR'd, go back to the third period and watch his last shift. Now, I didn't see what happened with him getting, I think most people reported that he got a puck in the head. I didn't really see that. But what I did see was a guy that looked completely out of it on the ice. And again, if you saw it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And again, I realized this was a low-intensity game. It was the third period. They were just getting through. But Dubois' last shift seemed like, he didn't really... I put it this way. I was watching it going, what in the world is he doing? So something wasn't right with Pierre-Luc Dubois in the third period of that hockey game. And, man, you sure hope that he'll be able to go, for game one. And if not for game one, at some point in this series. Because while he has been struggling lately, I think everyone realizes, and certainly the Winnipeg Jets realize, the reason why they got him here is because they thought he could really be an impact player in the playoffs and help the team, in matchups such as this one against the Edmonton Oilers. So we'll get into that with Hammer coming up. Would be interested in any of your chats. Now, Paul Adet was asking Remo about Zach Parise. Mm-hmm. And, he's still on the Wild, but he's not in the top 12. A healthy scratch. And it did get me going back onto Cap Friendly, just checking out that contract, Reem. I believe he's got 4 more years.
What?
In excess of $7.5 million. Real classy guy, has been a great player in the league, but you knew those mega deals that were 13-year deals for Parise and Suter would at some point come back to bite them, and it looks like we're at the beginning of that right now. But hell, Bill Guerin's done an amazing job with the Minnesota Wild getting to the spot they are. And how about that, Reem? They weathered the storm from the Vegas Golden Knights in the first half of the game and then sort of got it together. Cam Talbot, what a story he's been this year. And you know what? All you got to do on a road team, keep a game close, keep it tied, get to OT, and next thing you know, you're going into game 2 with a 1-0 lead. That pretty much blueprint for the Minnesota Wild as to how they were hoping to start things off.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. And it's not pun intended there. But about Zach Parise, 4 more years at 7.5. Honestly, though, good for them for being like, you know what? We know he's an expensive guy. We know he's a veteran guy. We're going to make him a healthy scratch. Obviously, you don't like doing that, but you need to do what's best for the team. And sometimes teams, don't come to that realization or come to it too late. And they put an aging guy, in the lineup over and over again when he's not productive because of his salary. So I give full credit. I mean, it's a new GM there in Minnesota, as you said, Bill Guerin. And he's like, you know what? I didn't sign this contract. I'm going to do what's best for the team. And I know they've got a lot of quality players there and a lot of young talent, more so than we've seen in the past. And a guy coming up big for them, Joel Eriksson-Ek. He's played kind of all over the lineup, third line, but there he was on the other day, with Minnesota. So, and Kevin Fiala, that trade has worked out for them real well. Kaprizov coming in this year. So they have, some nice talent there in Minnesota. And it is weird that a guy like Zach Parise, who's been there for so long, with that big contract, not only is a healthy scratch, but also has 4 more years at $7.5 million.
They owe him more than $30 million.
Yeah,
and he's not getting into the lineup in the playoffs. Not a good season. And we all remember they almost traded him at the deadline last year. There was potentially going to be a deal that would have moved him to the Islanders, I believe, for Andrew Ladd's contract, if I recall correctly. But it didn't happen. And now this is where they're at going forward. But anyways, Minnesota up 1-0. Great win. And then there's the Islanders, Reem. Barry Trotz's club. I have to say, it seemed like the trade deadline acquisitions of Palmieri and Zajac was a complete bust for the New York Islanders with the way they stumbled, similar to the Jets down the stretch. They were in first place. They ended up finishing in 4th. It wasn't really close. We're wondering what the Islanders were going to have for Pittsburgh, who no doubt remembers their sweep at the hands of New York a couple years ago. And there was Palmieri finally getting it done. Scores the first one, gets the OT winner, and the Islanders have a 1-0 win on Pittsburgh. Doesn't seem to matter about that last month of the Islanders season. They got off to a great start.
Yeah, it took Kyle Palmieri off to a really slow start with New Jersey. I know because I had to drop him in fantasy. I mean, he's been a 30-goal scorer in the past. He's been very good. And, maybe took a while. And it's also a J.G. Pajot, their trade deadline acquisition, who they then signed last year, scoring a big goal. And the thing with the Islanders, I mean, when do we start putting Barry Trotz in like the greatest NHL coaches of all time? Because it seems like every team that he coaches plays the same way, has this defensive structure, and he did it with Nashville for so long, couldn't quite get over the hump, won with Washington, and the Islanders, man, they got a lot of talent, and they've been pretty good here. So.
I don't know, to your point, I don't know that there's any coach in the league that consistently squeezes more out of his roster than Barry Trotz. I mean, I think that is, and listen, there's a number of great coaches in the National Hockey League, and man, what Quenneville's done in Florida this year has been really, really impressive, and we saw how just different that club was last night. But I'll tell you what, Barry Trotz, he's not getting out-coached very often. I'll just say that going forward. So Islanders up 1-0. Caps up 1-0. They'll get back at it. The Minnesota Wild up 1-0, and the Tampa Bay Lightning up 1-0 in their series. As far as tonight goes, Reem, and we'll get to some of these lines a little bit later, with our friends from CoolBet and get the daily lines. But 3 games tonight. Game 2 between Bruins Caps, Predators Hurricanes game number 1, and then late night 9 p.m. start, Blues and Avalanche. And I'll tell you what, it seems like the public and the bookmakers aren't giving the Blues very much of a chance, but I don't think this is going to be a short, easy series for Colorado. I think this is going to be a real test. Maybe not quite to Vegas having to play the Minnesota Wild, but I don't think this is going to be a real quick 4-and-out series.
We'll tell that to the odds makers. Minus 280 tonight for Colorado, so they are a heavy favorite. And I think not quite the minus like 450 Colorado was on the last game of the season to get first and against the LA Kings. We'll see with St. Louis. I mean, it is a lot of the same guys who took them to the Cup a couple years ago. Jordan Binnington in goal. I mean, hasn't quite been that guy, but he's been solid. And the one thing for Colorado this year compared to last year in the bubble is health. I mean, they have all their goalies. Philip Grubauer, he did have COVID before and was out, but he is back. He's he's going to be the guy for them. They did trade for Devin Dubnyk. They're not going down like third, fourth string like last year with Michael Hutchinson ended up starting a game. So Colorado, they're the heavy favorite. This is, for not only in the series, but for the Cup as well. So can Nathan McKinnon put it together? They got all these defensemen as well, Makar, Girard. So watch over Colorado. Although they've been just beating up on everyone. That top line up there, you rank the. It's funny, you rank the top lines in the playoffs. You got the McKinnon line with Rantanen and Landeskog. Also the Boston line up there. Maybe Toronto's top line, Marner, Matthews, and whoever they stick.
Any
there.
line with Connor McDavid on it.
Any line with Connor McDavid.
however they figure it out, with or without Draisaitl.
Yeah. Those are probably and then the Tampa. Kucherov's back for Tampa, so the point Kucherov and whatever they decide to do. So there are some top lines, but Colorado, I think, number 1 for me.
Shout out to everybody that's with us in chat. Hey, there's Destruction. What's up, D? Henry D, Sandy and G, T Kona, Paulie's with us, Jets 280, Tracy's always here, James Robinson. I noticed Paul was asking about the Jets morning skate. We'll get the full report from Hamilton because he actually is going to be joining us from the rink. He was down there and heard from some of the Jets afterwards, as well as Coach Maurice. But right now, the big news today, Remo, no Pierre-Luc Dubois. That's not good. The good news was Paul Stastny was out there in a full contact jersey. He, of course, left the game early, came back, and then didn't play in, I believe, most of the second period or third period on Friday night in the final one. And so he was back out in practice. And then, of course, everyone wondering about Nikolai Ehlers and what his status. He's still in the non-contact jersey dealing with that upper body injury, but was skating, was shooting, and even took some turns on a number of special teams drills working with that second power play unit from earlier today. So, it's about as good as it can be without him getting that non-contact jersey out. And as I mentioned on Friday, with this, it's sort of, let's find out when he can take contact, because I have a feeling, because of what we suspect the injury, something to do with the shoulder, collarbone, it's the contact, especially going into the playoffs, that I think will be a concern. They don't want to put him in too early. and get the possibility of re-injuring it and being out for an extended period of time through the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see how that. I mean, we're just waiting for Nikolai Ehlers to see if he can come back. I'm reading Ken Weeb's tweets at Weeb's World, and he's saying, he said as well, they practiced a lot in special teams, which I found interesting. He said they used a variety of different looks on power play 1 and 2. We know, the power play got kind of cold at the end of the season. They did try to, mix it up for a bit, putting Wheeler back on the far right boards. But then they went back to what they did, and then Kyle Connor started scoring some goals again. So I'm kind of curious what those looks are going to be. I guess it really depends on who's in the lineup. One other guy skated in a yellow non-contact, Andrew Copp, and he's going to be joining us later today. I don't know if he's going to be able to provide any clarity, but if he's putting out an NFT this week, Huss, it's like when Cole Beasley put out the rap song before the Bills playoff game, and you're like, oh, he's putting out a rap song. He's not putting that out if he's not playing. So I'm going to say the same thing with
guaranteed in the lineup.
Andrew Copp. Yeah, he's putting out an NFT this week. He's playing. So,
well, and I will say this, just knowing how the Jets work, and I mean, we won't, press Andrew for this. I mean, I'm sure he'll be coy like, the team is. But I will say I can't remember ever a player that was injured and not going to be playing coming on a show like this, leading up to a game. So I'm just going to take that as a good sign that Andrew Copp's coming on with us today, seemingly like he's getting ready for the playoffs. So, all of this stuff we can get to with Jeff Hamilton, who's kind enough to join us from the rink. And before we do that, big thanks to our sponsors, Not AutoCorp. Why not get into an incredible vehicle at an amazing price with the help of the Not team? And they'll also help you consign your present vehicle right now or help you get out of a lease. You can find out more. They had a big spread in the Winnipeg Free Press on the weekend. If you're a Free Press subscriber, you can check that out. Or simply go to their website at not.ca. You'll be able to check out some of the massive inventory they have, including all those amazing Teslas, as well as speak to someone about the consignment program or make an appointment to go down in and check out some of the rides. Not AutoCorp, great sponsors of Winnipeg Sports Talk from day one, Waverly and McGillivray, or online at not.ca. And now that the playoffs are here, every night is a game night. And why not get that game night deal from Boston Pizza or the pizza flights? And I did notice Destruction in here. I saw that Instagram on the weekend. How about that for a combo? Picks up a case of Little Brown Jugs and then gets the pizza flights from Boston Pizza. I can't think of a better setup for dominating a beautiful weekend day and watching football all day. So check out Boston Pizza, any of the locations. Obviously, there's no dine-in right now, takeout or delivery. You can order online as well at bostonpizza.ca. And out on the weekend, went over to Royal Sports. Man, if you're thinking about getting outside this year, one of the things that they've really expanded is the camping section. They've got all the Yeti material. They've got tents, backpacks, sleeping bags, some really, really cool stuff. So if that's something you're looking at doing this year, this summer, pop down to Royal. They'll get you set up right away. And needless to say, shoes, fitness gear, bikes, soccer, baseball, everything else is there. Plan to spend a little bit of extra time in the best store around. Royal Sports, 650 Rally EK, 750 Pembina Highway. All right, let's get to some Jets talk. We welcome in the Hammer, Jeff Hamilton, Winnipeg Free Press, live from the rink. What's going on, dude? Thanks for doing this.
Gents, good to be here. Always a pleasure. I figured you'd have the music queued up now that I've been on, a regular guest. But hey, in time.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to start getting wrestling style intro themes and whatnot. We're working on some effects, some good back shots from earlier in your career as well. A bit of a tribute montage as you come on every day. How are you? How was the weekend?
Yeah, things are great. I mean, I've been getting the weekends off, so I've been taking full advantage of them. It's the weather is absolutely terrific. I finally got on the course again, played way better than my first round, so I have that confidence. I'm sure I'll lose that the next 18, but so far so good. Looking forward to playoff hockey here. Looking to see what the Jets' response will be from this last month. And really, I mean, the weekend was so great for hockey, as you mentioned. It was nice to kind of just plunk down. I didn't watch as much hockey yesterday just because of the weather, but I definitely took in that Florida special, which was just like
how good of a game was that?
Oh man, I mean, it was. I don't know if you look at, like, we've been talking about the other divisions, right? I mean, a lot of the focus has been on Canadian teams. I think that's been a really awesome thing this year, just learning more about them, because, it's just, obviously it's a division the Jets are in. But I mean, I have Game Center too, so it's not like I wasn't watching anybody. I would tune in for kind of Patrick Laine and the Columbus games here or there, but my U.S. consumption as far as NHL this season has been dragging, just given all the circumstances. So it was nice to watch those games for sure.
Wow, it was a heck of a start. And, for the National Hockey League, to go in, and I will admit, I'm getting a little bit triggered watching these games with massive crowds and people seemingly back to normal, great atmospheres, knowing our situation here and what's going on, but we won't go down that road. We're dealing with it and hopefully getting out of it soon. But I mean, from a league perspective, to start it off with that great game Saturday night between Washington and Boston in overtime, follow it up with an overtime game between the Islanders and Penguins, another overtime game, although maybe 0-0 OT isn't exactly what they were hoping for, but a very exciting game between Minnesota and Vegas, and then finishing it up with that 5-4. It was a classic last night. I mean, that is what playoff hockey is. I'll say one thing. The bar has been set very high for the rest of the playoffs, and even round one with what we saw from game one in these first four series.
Well, and I don't think it's picking on, the Canadian division here. I think it's just it's the fact that these teams know each other extremely well. I think we're going to see exactly that happen in whether it's, Toronto and Montreal or the Jets and Edmonton. I think these series are going to be pretty close. I mean, when you start focusing all your attention on one team, and you've seen them as much as you've seen them this year, I think it's going to be an pretty even matchup. Obviously a lot of, if you look at some of the Jets' history against Edmonton, it doesn't suggest as much. And but that being said, I mean, this is the new season, and you hope that the Jets were watching that this past weekend, knowing that not anything can happen, but the Dogs won on a couple of those games, if not all of them. If I look at them, and who's to say that Montreal or Winnipeg can't do the same?
Well, exactly. We've got a couple days to wait before we end up getting to Jets Oilers on Wednesday. But there's a lot of things to talk about the Winnipeg Jets. We might get back to some of the other playoffs, but let's focus in on the team and the skate today. First off, no Pierre-Luc Dubois. And I was mentioning this in the chat before you came on. I didn't see the incident that he apparently got hit with the puck. What I did see, though, Jeff, was his last shift on Friday. And I mean, I regret it. I went back, and I don't have it PVR'd anymore, so I can't go back and see it. But if you do have it on the PVR, mid-third period or so, last time Dubois was on the ice, he looked discombobulated, just kind of out of it. Like, not attentive, not, following the play, just sort of lost. And... I left. There wasn't much to it. Maybe it was, whatever. It was the third period of a nothing game at the end of the season. But I was very interested to see, what happened with Dubois through the weekend. The fact that we're now through the weekend on Monday and he wasn't there in practice, I think, has to be an indication that all is not right. And, man, you just got to cross your fingers that Nikolai Ehlers might be able to come back because, wow, I mean, if you're losing Dubois and Ehlers, I mean, that's essentially 2/3 of what was planned to be your second line. And, I mean, that's kind of tough to overcome.
Yeah, I don't even, where do you start to unpack this? Do you think about the post-game comments from Paul Maurice, where it was just, in typical kind of fashion, this isn't a shot against him, but, he kind of said, we're optimistic. This was all precautionary and stuff, right? So you kind of looked at Stastny's injury and then Pierre-Luc Dubois as one of the same. Okay, it's, third period of a nothing game. What's the point of having him play out? But when you start talking about that shift, as you mentioned, you start thinking about his injury. We all know Paul Stastny's injury was a cross-check to the side, right? I mean, it could have been, issues with the kidney, just kind of a stinger, could have been whatever, right? Or you could have just been in some pain and it wasn't worth risking, anything further happening. Whereas when you take a shot on the lid and you kind of have those examples or those shifts, you start wondering, I'm not suggesting anything towards a head injury per se or a concussion, but those are the things that linger for a few days and you don't have the answers for. So the fact that, as you mentioned, you don't see him here after the weekend through these first couple days of serious practicing for the playoffs, and you see guys like Nick Ehlers. I don't think Nick Ehlers is going to be ready for game one. I don't know that for a fact, but I don't think he will be. But he's in a yellow jersey, buzzing out there, part of the power play, is essentially signs that he will eventually be back if it's not the first game. So same thing with Andrew Copp. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind Andrew Copp's playing. I mean, if you look at the way he skated today, the yellow jersey feels like a formality. And then when they finished up the skate, he went to center ice, and I don't know exactly what's ailing him, but he's doing those sprints between one end of the center dot to the next and back and forth, right? So he's ready to go. And as you mentioned, he's on your show. He's most likely going to be in. So those are the questions you ask about Pierre-Luc Dubois. And, just given the nature of what we believe his injury was, there are some major question marks. Now, this is a day-by-day process. They'll max this out, as long as they can. If they feel like he can, if he's on the ice tomorrow, that's obviously a good sign. But at the same time, his status for this, this game one of this series is at very least questionable. And at this point, I would point as far as doubtful if we don't see some serious progression here in the next 24 hours.
Yeah. So let's talk about Copp for a minute, because, I think all things being equal and everyone being healthy, it would be Copp playing with Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton.
Right.
If either of Ehlers or Dubois are not available for game number one, I would think that Andrew Copp's probably a guy that's getting the move up to that spot, and you'd probably be putting Matthew Perreault in with Lowry and Appleton to handle that job. Or do you think that they just realized that the most important thing they need to do is play well against Connor McDavid? Maurice might want to have his best on best go up against that, and the best guys for that job is Copp, Lowry, and Appleton. How do you see that going? Will it be Matthew Perreault, do you think, that would take one of those spots in the top six if need be, and staying with the tried and true third line? Or is Andrew Copp just, he's the guy that moves up in that situation?
No, I think Perreault goes on that line and Copp moves up into the top six. I think, and it's not just because you have to think about it too, the fact that the first two games are on the road, Jets don't get last change. So they're not really going to be calling the shots for those first two games, essentially. And you want to have a guy like Andrew Copp who has, blossomed offensively this year, but also brings that defensive game. So you kind of want that balance out. And there's been a lot of respect for Matthew Perreault this year, particularly, and trust, if you will, with Paul Maurice. And he even said it post game as I was asking about that line, particularly with Adam Lowry and obviously Mason Appleton and Copp, if that line was to go, what the focus would be, right? Because we've mentioned them as that shutdown line, as grinding line, not so much third line, given where how often they come off the bench. But there's always kind of, and I don't want to say defensive because it hasn't been defensive of the players, but they've kind of like, hey guys, we can score too. That's an element of our game that we like to show off. So I asked Maurice today about, given the tall order that they're going to be faced with Connor McDavid and or Leon Draisaitl on that same line, possibly, is it okay to kind of go defensively? And then anyways, my point in sharing that part was his answer included, well, if Matt Perreault's on that line too. So he kind of played his hand a little bit, and then went on to say, well, yes, as long as you're not cheating the puck, yada, yada, defense is the priority, and so and so forth. So, that tends to lean towards Matthew Perreault taking that line and of course, Andrew Copp, because you also want to have that scoring touch in your top six. And we know that Andrew Copp brings that defensive game to every line he plays for, not just that third. So when you're getting the kind of season that you're getting out of Matthew Perreault, I'm not saying it's as good, but it's probably as seamless as it gets for this team to have Andrew Copp get the promotion and to see a guy like Matty Perreault come in, because you have guys like Jansen Harkins who can fill in that fourth line. You have guys that are buzzing, in that role. So that seems to be the more natural, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But that's where I believe this team is leaning.
Now, staying up front, when I look at this, series and you're breaking down strengths and weaknesses, it's hard not to look at the matchup of the top lines. We know that they'll go head to head at some point, especially in Edmonton, because I think Dave Tippett loves that matchup. Not as much maybe Paul Maurice, considering what happened this year. thoughts on just the Scheifele, Wheeler, Connor line, who, really did sort of have a bit of an explosion in these final 2 games of the season. How much that matters, I mean, that's up for debate, I guess. But certainly getting some results, maybe some good feelings going in. To me, this is the most critical part of this series. I mean, defending Connor McDavid is going to be a 5-man job every time he is on the ice. But he is going to get some goals. I mean, the ability for that line to spend some time in the other team's end and to create things offensively, to me will determine, whether the Jets are in this series or whether it's Connor McDavid doing what he did in the reg.
Yeah, I was waiting for a question I could sink my teeth into, and this is it. I think that the Jets are in a lot of trouble if that's the case. Look, the Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor line has been buzzing the last couple games. They've been scoring even strength goals, which is incredibly important. But if you watch them, they're still playing too much of a perimeter game. They want to play in space. They don't bang against the opposing lines the way that you've seen successful, groupings in the past play against Connor McDavid. And so I'm not saying they're going to get fed their lunch per se. It's just going to be a tough ask to go, head to head with them. And you mentioned a 5-man group. That's where the importance of Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello are going to be, because the best offense, and I'm not trying to get too cliche here, is to keep it out of your zone. So if you can get that, and that's been, I think, missing here, is that the Jets have been opportunistic, particularly that line. We've seen a lot of, we've seen them capitalize on the plays that they often capitalize on. And what I mean by that is the chaos out of the neutral zone. It's not structured per se, but if a puck pops out and now it's a 2-on-1, that's where they take advantage of their opportunities, or on those odd man rushes, and that's when you see all those beautiful passing plays, and then of course the finish that we've seen from all 3 of those guys. Where the concern is kind of sustaining that pressure, keeping that puck, going into the areas that you're going to have to get into and maintain that puck, and then being able to come back defensively and play a true 200-foot game. And what we haven't seen, I'm not saying we haven't seen that from this line ever, but you can't take what we've seen here in the last week, this turnaround, if you will, against the opponents that this line has eaten alive essentially the last few games, and say that's just going to work against Edmonton. It's not. I mean, and this to me is and Paul Maurice said it, who's the most important player on this Winnipeg Jets team? It goes by ice time. Connor Hellebuyck plays 60 minutes a game. He's the most important player on this team. The next person is Mark Scheifele. He logs the second most ice time next to Connor Hellebuyck. So the expectations are high. And, we've made a lot about this over the last few years, building off Mark Scheifele's comments of wanting to be in the conversation with players like, Connor McDavid, like Sidney Crosby, like Nathan McKinnon, like Austin Matthews. Well, this is your opportunity. This is the time where, whatever feelings, I or others might have about his game this year. And, he's been good. I would argue he hasn't necessarily been consistent, but he has been good. This is kind of, like the Jets season the last month. This is your opportunity to flip the script. These are the matchups that you need to either win or battle, at least, to be in those conversations. So there's a lot, whether, and that, I think you're right. This is going to be a situation in these next 2 games where they're going to be, if you're Edmonton, you're fine with pinning your best line, Connor McDavid, against the Jets' best line, because or at least you feel that you're going to be able to win that matchup. And if you take the offense away from that line, and I think the Jets will be doing everything they can not to play, head to head, it's just going to be, they're going to be forced to. If you're Edmonton, you're happy with that. So this is going to be a big test. I mean, there's lots of storylines that go into these playoffs, but Mark Scheifele versus Connor McDavid is going to be a massive one. And it goes back to my earlier point where they're going to have to show an ability that they aren't turning around and trying to create space on the perimeter. They're going to have to be in the dirty areas, fighting against what will be a very, very tough line to not only contain, but to try to beat. And that's going to be their task when they're up against them.
Well, exactly. And they certainly have plenty of video to go over from the regular season on what to do and maybe what not to do. Because, honestly, and we can talk about the depth of the Jets forward unit, and we do hear that quite a bit. I mean, that's all great, but if you are at such a significant disadvantage on the scoreboard in that top line matchup with the amount of ice time that those lines say, it's really almost impossible to make up for. And, listen, I mean, I certainly think that they can be better. How much? I mean, I guess we'll see. But, really when it comes down to it, Jeff, I mean, let's think about when the Jets have had their most success in the playoffs. 2018. I mean, Mark Scheifele, in a lot of ways, put that team on his back, and he had 14 goals in 17 games. I mean, he was the guy. And then, unfortunately, when that offense dried up, they were gone quickly to the Vegas Golden Knights. So, I mean, with great responsibility comes great pressure, and I would say that there is some pressure and also something to prove, I would say, for Scheifele individually, as well as with Kyle Connor and Blake Wheeler on that top line.
Well, it's a great point. And I mean, let's be clear about something. Mark Scheifele is a great player. It's just, where does he fit in the conversation with the league's best players? And so that's why he's even, part of this conversation. That's why he gets, not, I wouldn't say criticism. That's why he's, under a spotlight here, is the fact that he's capable of doing that. As you mentioned, we saw that in that playoff run. We also saw a guy go down, a few shifts into last year's playoffs. So, I guess,
and it was over.
So, I mean, for him, there is something to prove, right? He's got to be, and he is. I mean, we talked about it with him today. He is hungry. He is hungry to prove that he belongs in that conversation. I mean, I was asking him questions about that today, and he admitted to thinking about this matchup for the last couple of days, particularly him and Connor McDavid, a player that he has a ton of respect for and understands how good is, and has called himself a fan of him. So and that's really the thing here, is that we've seen this guy. We've seen him be at his best. We've watched him rise to that player who, struggled to kind of stay on his skates early in his career, to being a dominating scoring presence in the National Hockey League. Now it's maintaining that reputation. The points have been there this year. I would argue the defense has certainly taken a hit. Or continued on, I guess, for a lack thereof. And again, those are tough games. Those are tough things to add to your game when you are relied on as much as Mark Scheifele is relied on offensively. To be a kind of player who's a 200-foot player is a big ask, and something that Connor McDavid isn't exactly. Connor McDavid isn't known for his defense. The thing is, he can pick the puck up in his own zone and score all the way on the other end, and so no one's really caring about what he's doing on the other end of the ice. So the reality is I think that Mark is getting ready for this. I think he's eager for it. I mean, you can ask Andrew Copp when he comes in. This probably no one knows him better maybe than Andrew Copp, and how dedicated he is and how badly he wants to win. So we just we know all those things. We just need to see all those things, and the Jets will need for him to be their best player if they want to get through this series.
Jeff Hamilton, the Winnipeg Free Press, is with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Great crowd here early on a Monday. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button, give us a like, and if you're new around here and haven't subscribed already, hit that red button and make sure you're with us every day here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily at 1 o'clock. Going to be a huge week, and hopefully we'll have lots of Jets hockey to talk about for a while. But, of course, that's going to mean a win over the Edmonton Oilers. And it is a big, big task, Jeff. We've spent a lot of time talking about the guys up front. Let's talk about the blue line. You were at practice today. Interesting to see Tucker Poolman and Ville Heinola skating together today. Is that sort of a hand tip that both of those players might be in the press box for game number one?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they were working on the ice after practice again, one-on-one together. That doesn't usually happen. I'm not saying it's impossible. But doesn't usually happen for guys that are in the lineup. And I mean, let's face it, Tucker Poolman's been out for a while with injury. Heinola has been in and out of the lineup. We know that Paul Maurice leans towards veterans. So obviously Jordy Ben fits into that category. And I think, I think all things considered for a third line, I mean, don't get me wrong here. This isn't to suggest that I don't think Ville Heinola should be in the lineup or shouldn't be in the lineup. I think he should have been integrated in the lineup earlier so that when you got to this position, he was in a better situation to succeed if he was to be in the lineup. In this situation now, I think Jordy Ben and Logan Stanley have played well together, all things considered. So they have that chemistry, and that's what Paul Maurice is leaning on. Again, I'm not suggesting that you couldn't easily move over to the other line and replace that third line or find some kind of mixture and remove Ben or whatever you might do. Paul Maurice did say today that game one is all based on health. So, although Tucker Poolman is back, I mean, how healthy is he? Is he at full strength? I'm sure he is. But after the first game, it's about who's playing well. So that kind of suggests that there's a bit of a shorter leash. Like, I mean, Josh Morrissey isn't going to have a bad game. Dylan DeMello is not going to have a bad game and get removed from the lineup. Same with, Neil Pionk and probably Derek Forbort for a lot of ways, because we heard Maurice say that if the Winnipeg Jets are going to be successful in the playoffs, they need to have the best out of Derek Ford specifically. I mean, the question was asked about him, so it wasn't like he kind of drew him out of nowhere. But we've also seen a tendency to take out, those two guys in Logan Stanley and Jamie Benn. So I think, when he says the first game's about health and the second game's about, and beyond that's about performance, I think he's signaling out to Jordy Benn and Logan Stanley that unless you guys, you have to play a way or a style that's going to keep you in the lineup. And if they go out in game one and it's a hard fought, win, obviously the lineup's probably going to remain the same. Even if it's a hard fought loss, it might remain. But if you start seeing things, tipping the other way and things, when I think you're going to see changes pretty quick. I don't think there's going to be a couple games for necessarily that third pairing. So keep your eye on it. Just the way we've seen it through practice, the fact that Tucker Poolman has been off skates or hasn't had a lot of game action in a while. It's certainly headed that direction that Logan Stanley and Jordy Benn will be your third D pairing.
Hammer, let me ask you this: the DeMello Morrissey pairing. Mm-hmm. This has been something that we had seen in the past. I don't think a day went by through the first 45 shows that we were doing that someone didn't pop up in the chat. Well, when are they going to put Morrissey with DeMello? And it took a long time to finally get to this point. Is this sort of the last resort? Was Maurice trying to figure out a better way that allowed him to keep those players apart and just ended up on this? Or was there more to it?
It's funny you asked that, because I'm not going to say I have no idea. I'm probably have closer to no idea than having a really, really, really good idea. But it's the question we've been floating out for a while. You talk about your chats or your shows and someone bring it up. I think it's something we brought up almost every practice. We didn't quite understand if Paul Maurice, and this is nothing against Tucker Poolman, but like trying to create him to be a number one defenseman over this season? Was it, obviously he knows what he has in Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello. We've seen it in previous or last season. We saw that chemistry. We wondered why that chemistry wasn't being put together. And, it has to be, obviously Paul Maurice liked that grouping with Tucker Poolman and Josh Morrissey. There's other factors I think that may have played into it, or at least early in the season. Obviously, DeMello missed some time having his kid. He didn't have that with COVID and everything. He didn't have that support system where, a lot of these guys are able to fly in their family and it's kind of like a village to raise the kids. That wasn't, from what we understand, the situation at the DeMello house. So maybe it was, maybe there's a bit more responsibility on him, and maybe that was reflective in his numbers and bringing, less minutes with less sleep with a kid. So, that's speculation. The other thing is that Dylan DeMello is a very calming presence. So, did you want him in that third pairing to kind of bring along other guys and even out your top six? Because as we know, Dylan DeMello doesn't get, ignored when it comes to killing penalties. So, he certainly has the role there. I asked him a couple weeks ago, understanding he's a team player, understanding that he's doing anything that's good for the team, and he is under contract, so it's not like he's not under going to be with his team for some time and has to earn another contract. Why he didn't feel like he'd be up top there, or why he was on a third line pairing. And of course he gave the diplomatic answer about being a team player, but he said he didn't really know. And so that to me kind of was like, okay, like I guess this is the way it is. But it's just an odd thing to me that they tried that experiment for so long, and it ultimately took injuries and the shuffling of the lineup to put them back. And now here we are ready to head into playoffs, and that's the duo leading the top.
I do think that there was an element of, and this is a credit to DeMello, in that Maurice was playing him often with younger players that were just sort of getting their feet wet in the National Hockey League. And, if there's one thing the Jets have done, and I think quite well for the most part, is try to put these young players, when they do get into the lineup, in a position to succeed. And I think it speaks a lot of Dylan DeMello that, when you're bringing in a Logan Stanley, to play right off the bat, a guy like DeMello on the other side, I think does put those young players in the best situation to succeed. And, I think Logan Stanley's success, especially when he was playing game in and game out, a big part of that was the comfort with the guy on his side. Not to say he isn't capable of more, and I think he's going to get that chance to do much more. in a pretty tough spot going against Connor McDavid with Josh Morrissey. But through the season, I have a feeling that did play into it as well, in addition to the fact that, Tucker Poolman, for some of the warts in his game, I really did think came into this season with some higher expectations, because if you go back to the bubble in Calgary, I thought he was the best defenseman for the Jets in those 4 games against the Calgary Flames. And, going out of that series, as disappointing as it was with the injuries, one of the things that I certainly thought were that he made a statement that he was ready for more. And at times we've seen it this year, but it has been difficult for him to be at that level game in and game out. And that, I think, why, in addition to whatever the health situation he's dealing with, is why his place in the lineup is a lot less clear as we go into the first game of round 1.
Yeah, and it's a good point. I was going to say it if you didn't bring it up, is that there's definitely the situation where it's trying to bring Tucker Poolman's game to the next level, playing with a guy like Josh Morrissey, and also adding a little bit of size to that group. And Tucker Poolman's kind of sneaky good moving the puck. So I don't think he's the best puck mover, but if you're going to have a guy playing with Josh Morrissey, you hope that you hope that the transition game is there, right? I mean, and that's kind of the disappointment with a guy like Ville Heinola, where you thought maybe he'd come in early, because if you're trying that experiment with him early on in the season, we're giving him kind of those first pairing minutes, trying to become a bit of a better transition team. I think that would have been a unique situation to be in now, because he would have had that kind of experience. But that's obviously what they were trying to do with Tucker Poolman and complement with them, and then obviously the injuries and everything play a role into that. It's just kind of interesting that things that whether we're talking about it at watching practice or fans are talking about amongst themselves, the fact that we've ended up where everyone kind of thought where we should have been a while is just, it kind of leaves you thinking, okay, like what kind of took so long for this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the situation is so different in the regular season as opposed to the playoffs. And I think we just touched on a few of those things they were trying to get at. And again, everything that happens, like once you've clinched your playoff spot in the regular season, and Maurice has talked about everything about it, is to improve and get yourself in the best position that when you drop the puck on the playoffs, that you've improved, you've grown as a team, and you're ready for that challenge. And from the sounds of it, what do you make? Because Paul Maurice has said this a number of times over the course of the past 2-3 weeks. Through a really, really tough time, struggles for the club that were not there for the first 80% of the calendar. He kept coming back to the fact that there is an opportunity for us as a team to come out and be better and be more well prepared to actually have success in the playoffs because of what's happened. Sometimes you do need to learn lessons the hard way. How much of that message are you buying right now as it pertains to the Jets going into this series?
See, before I go, I'm not going to say rant, but it doesn't matter what Jeff Hamilton thinks the Jets are going to do. It doesn't, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter whether I think that they've lost 6 games in a row to them, or that, what they've said, all the right things, or whether I want to question that. I mean, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's the response from the Winnipeg Jets, and that's what I'm waiting for. I mean, this is what we're you can say everything you want about how tight this group is and how we've kind of held each other's held each other up through this tough time, and this is great. I'm glad we went through this adversity now, and how much better it's going to be. Who cares about that if you don't show up and do it? And we just, we haven't seen it. So, whether it's, I think the Jets are in a tough situation or not, it's irrelevant. It's whether the Jets show up and be the team they keep saying they are. Because if you don't have the response, then all that talk about how you grew together means crap to me. In fact, if you come out and lay an egg against Edmonton this time, I think you got to seriously consider the future of this team, because we're getting on a 3rd year here now where we're still talking about the 2018 run. Nobody talks about that stuff. Teams don't talk about runs years ago. I remember this, and it was hilarious. This was the 2015 playoffs. I think it was a year or two after, obviously, the Jets were swept by Anaheim. And Ryan Kessler, who's not exactly known as the nicest guy to media, the Ducks were here in town. I think it was the next year. And I just, this was when you were able to talk to guys one-on-one, and it wasn't just a scrum thing. I went over to his stall, and, we were talking a bit, and I had mentioned, the Winnipeg, did you learn anything about the Jets? through those 4 games, and whatnot. And what do you take away, or is there a different appreciation? And he kind of gave me like a bit of a diplomatic answer, being like, oh yeah, they were okay, blah, blah, blah. And then I walk away and I could hear 5 feet behind me. He goes to, I forget who his teammate was. It wasn't like, a big name. He goes, did you hear what that guy asked me? He asked me about the Jets and playoffs last year. Nobody remembers the team that gets swept. And so, it's under his breath. And it's just a way that the players think. It's like, you can't hang your hat on a wicked run in 2018. I mean,
but at the same time, we always talk about, experience is important and all that. I mean, if you have experience, you talk about it, right?
It is important. But you asked me about this whole, and I liken it to the Bombers a bit, right? Like the whole when Andrew Harris didn't get the awards and stuff like that. And, they were backing into the playoffs. They were losing. They had this massive chip on their shoulder, and they went out and they proved it. The response was there, and they, whether they could say they shoved it down media's throats or whoever was, their critics or whatnot. We're getting to that point now where the Jets are starting to act like the city's against them, like everyone's against them, like
full-fledged. No one believes in us. Did you hear Wheeler after the game on Friday?
Exactly, and let's just be very clear about something. Blake Wheeler has not gotten the criticism this year that warrants those kind of comments, and so if that is the culture that's going on, that's great, but that culture or that attitude means nothing if you don't come out and prove it. So, whether you want to listen to the outside noise, which they claim they did, and clearly they do, listen to the fans that have ruled you out, all that stuff. If you want to use them as motivation, if they're the critics or the ones that you're worried about that you need to get on and prove wrong, go ahead and do it. There's not a single critic out there that's a fan of you guys that doesn't welcome being wrong in their decision. As a media guy, I don't care if they prove me wrong right now. The fact of the matter is the evidence we see in front of us suggests they're not going to do it. So if whatever motivation you need to manufacture at this point, whatever you need to do as a team to find that next level, whether it's feeling like you're against the media or against the critics, the fans that don't believe it, so be it. Just go out and do it. Because it's been a couple of years now where, you haven't even made a dent in the playoffs. Here's your next opportunity. Make the most out of it.
Oh, Hammer, what a hell of a way to finish off the visit. I know you got to get to the ride. We got to get ready for Andrew Copp. This was awesome. We didn't get onto any CFL topics. We'll focus on the hockey today. We'll get an update on that hopefully next week. Keep up the great work. Can't wait to see what you've got coming up for Jet fans in the Winnipeg Free Press all this week. And hopefully we'll have some more playoff games to talk about with you back here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Thanks as always, pal.
Yeah, I love covering hockey and plus 22. So if the Jets want to go super long into this playoff drive, I'm good with it too. So.
Let's do it. There he is. Follow him on Twitter if you haven't already. It's Jeff Hamilton. He's on Twitter at Jeff K. Hamilton. And of course, check out his fine work in the pages of the Winnipeg Free Press. Great stuff with Jeff. We are not done talking Jets, though. We are going to have Jets forward Andrew Copp join us, scheduled in about 5 minutes, so make sure you stick around for that. Really looking forward to it. In the meantime, big thanks to our beer sponsors, Little Brown Jug. I don't know about you folks. I did get a few tweets from some of you out there that were enjoying the new summer lager, the Hefeweizen. I did a number on a few 1919s yesterday afternoon and actually kicked it outside, cracked a beer, and instead of watching the Vegas-Minnesota game, I fired up the radio. Well, obviously got it on the phone, not a real AM radio like back in the day. But listen to our pal Gary Lawless and Dan Duva call the game. It was, heck, with nowhere else to go. You can't gather out with friends. So, outside, throw the game on, do that. And needless to say, the Little Brown Jug came in very handy. You can check out the Good Times Variety Pack at your local bottle shop or beer store. And that one comes with both the new Summer Lager and the Hefeweizen. And I'll direct you as well to the website, revamped website, littlebrownjug.ca. Man, they've done an amazing job. They've got merchandise, events, they've got the store there. And as I said before, they've got a very successful home delivery service through the pandemic. So you can find out more on the website at littlebrownjug.ca. And of course, Nick and Nikki DQ Group, that is the Dairy Queens in Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ St. Anne's, and DQ Polo Park. Now, with no indoor dining right now, they do have drive-thrus at both Niverville and Northgate, or you can pop by. Polo Park's still open, just the food court isn't right now. Nick and Nick, you got some great offers with the 2 for $5 treat deal after 5 o'clock. no one does better cakes, and you can order those online at DQ Manitoba. But as Nick told us going into the weekend, get there now. It's blizzard season, and the new drumstick blizzard might be the best one yet. So pop by Nick and Nicky DQ Group. Tell them your boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And I have to say, originally this was supposed to be opening day for Assiniboia Downs. And as we told you on Friday, it has been pushed back, unfortunately. Only 1 week, though. So a week today, the Monday of the May long weekend, will be opening day. We'll have Darren Dunn join us on the program. But in the meantime, you can get ready for the season with the HPIBet.com account. Remis and I will be making some wagers on a daily basis here on the program, so you can bet with us. You can do that right now at HPIBet.com. And throughout the year, don't forget for the ASD Live pre-race handicapping show, Kirk Pintois was joining us on Friday. Marshall Stretch, they break it down every day, 6:45 before the 7:20 post. So make a note of that when we get going with live racing coming up in a few minutes. It's PGA Championship week. And man, a weird weekend at the event, the Byron Nelson on the weekend. You had Jordan Spieth going crazy earlier on in the week, but it ended up being KH Lee, 25 under par. He went 65, 65, 67, 66. Good enough for a 3-shot win over Sam Burns. But this week, it's all about the PGA Championship. And we'll do a full breakdown in the days to come before Thursday's event. But that will be, as always, all of our golf coverage here, brought to you by Breezy Bend Country Club. We'll give Corey and the guys a shout out, doing some great work on the course. And a good luck to the Breezy boys in Monday Putter, which is coming up. I guess they'll be playing a little bit later on today. All right, so Wednesday night is game one between the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers. We had a great chat with Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press on what came out of practice today. And one of the good news was that Andrew Copp was out there getting ready to, hopefully, fingers crossed, return to the lineup coming up on Wednesday. And it is an absolute pleasure to welcome in Andrew Copp to Winnipeg Sports Daily of the Winnipeg Jets a couple days before dropping the puck against the Edmonton Oilers. Andrew, welcome to WST. What's going on?
Not too much. Just trying to enjoy a beautiful day in Winnipeg.
Yeah, no doubt. Weather is gorgeous. Kind of feels like playoff weather. And I know you and your teammates would love to be busy for a couple months going to the rink in these sort of conditions. First things first, how are you feeling? Obviously, you've been in and out of practice over the last couple days. Are you hopeful and confident that you'll be a part of the lineup when things get going against the Oilers?
Yeah, I'm confident I'll be in. Just a little minor setback in the last game against Vancouver, but felt good the last few days and should be good to go on Wednesday.
Now, what's the feeling like around the team right now? No matter what happens in the regular season, the goal when you begin the one of 56 is to book a ticket to the playoffs and have an opportunity to compete for the Stanley Cup. But it was a weird season. I mean, you guys had such a great start, did struggle late in the year, although seemingly sort of got back together and had some good results lately. How would you categorize just the feeling of the team in the room 2 days before the challenge against the Oilers?
Yeah, I think everyone's pretty excited. I think, this is kind of what you build up throughout the year to get to this point. And, whether it's never a direct path, it's always, ups and downs throughout the year. And, we're kind of looking forward to, proving people wrong about what they think about our team right now. So, I think we're a confident group. I think we're there's definitely an added energy, added focus, as we go through these practice days and whatnot, that we're kind of getting to the best time of year and to that do or die time. So, there's no other option but winning games now, and if not, then we're not going to be playing hockey for very long.
Coach Maurice on a couple of occasions through, the 7-game losing streak and sort of coming out of it with some better results, kept coming back to the point that, he believes there's an opportunity for the club to be better for what they've gone through. And, part of it was getting back to the fundamentals, accepting the defensive things that need to happen to beat teams like Edmonton and Toronto. Where are you on that? And what do you think that you and your teammates can kind of take out of those struggles to, make you a better team when it counts? And that's, of course, the postseason.
Well, I think there's a lot to believe in that. I think that, our offensive game, or our offensive numbers for the first 40, 45 games of the year were really good. And I think we became almost a little bit too reliant on that, and too proud of what we can do offensively. And we forgot about, not forgot, but we weren't as sharp as we needed to be on the defensive side of the puck. And I think when you saw we went through a little bit of a scoring slump there, how badly we need our defensive game to be as tight as possible, especially going up against, McDavid and Draisaitl. And then, if we were playing Toronto, it'd be, Matthews and Marner and all those dangerous players that they have. So, there's a certain style of hockey that you have to play in the playoffs to win, and a certain belief that you have to have in both sides of your game, and a certain amount of confidence. So I think our offensive game, we figured out a little bit towards the end, started to put up some numbers. I think our power play will be ready to go in that game one, and then it's just controlling that defensive side of the game, not letting McDavid and Draisaitl kind of have their way.
Now, you've had a career year, and I do want to talk a little bit about the season that you had individually, but, focusing in on this challenge against the Edmonton Oilers, the opportunity to talk to you about it is great because, not only have you had a lot of success offensively, but you're probably a guy that the coach is going to tap on the shoulder more often than not to go out with maybe the most difficult challenge in the National Hockey League, and that is going up against Connor McDavid. Just from your perspective, Andrew, what are the keys to, and look at the numbers. There's nobody that's completely shutting down a guy playing at that level, but when you get out there, what are the first things that you need to focus on and do well to minimize a guy that put up 105 points in the regular season?
Yeah, like you said, there's no quick answer. There's no easy fix. I think it's, and it's not really one guy either. It's defending as a unit of five when he's on the ice, and understanding where each other, are going to be, what each other's reads are. I think when he's on the ice, you realize his speed is his biggest weapon, right? So his rush game is better than anybody else's. His offensive game is better than everybody else's, but his rush game in particular is what makes him so dangerous. So, I think getting on top of him as he's coming through the neutral zone, puck management when you do have the puck at the blue line, or as you're, maybe on a 3-on-2, and you see a play, the percentage of your calculations of the risk reward change when he's on the ice, depending on where that puck could go or where it could deflect to, and then he picks it up with speed, and then at that point he's already gone. So I think your risk reward calculations change when he's on the ice, so that puck management, you're a little safer with it, and maybe you see a play that you might usually make, but when he's on the ice, you might decide to hold on to it or put it low, or make a safer play at the end of the day. So he's just that kind of player that changes everyone's risk reward calculations when he's on the ice. So and then stay out of the box too. I think their power play is top 5 in the league, and he's obviously a big part of that. So if we can manage the puck when he's on the ice and not really let him get the full speed wind up against our 2D, or if it's a 3-on-2 or whatever it is, and then stay out of the box as much as possible, I think that's a good recipe for us.
Andrew Copp of the Winnipeg Jets with us here live on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. You mentioned staying out of the box, and certainly discipline, in tight series and special teams can really be, the difference when, if two teams are going at it relatively closely at 5-on-5. For a guy that's done a lot of penalty kill, I have to ask you, is the challenge of penalty killing against a team or a power play like the Oilers with a Draisaitl and particularly McDavid different than a regular power play? Do you have to pay more attention, if that's possible, at 4-on-5 against players like that? Or is it pretty much just trying to execute the system as well as possible just against one of the best power plays in the league?
Well, I think, obviously those two are dangerous, and those are guys that you want to look for. But, Tyson Barrie's really dangerous up top too. You can't just focus on McDavid and Draisaitl on that 5-on-4, because Barry hits that one timer really nice. I think he scored a few on us this year. Chason's done a good job in front. Nugent Hopkins makes plays. So it's more of just the totality of their unit, and they're kind of a unique setup. Like they kind of move around a lot. Like it's not, if you're looking at, Tampa's power play, for example, last night, Kucherov and Stamkos on the side, Hedman up top, Point in the middle, and then either Killorn and Palat net front. You kind of know where everyone's going to be. And, I mean, not that I'm saying that their power play is easy to go against. I mean, they scored 3 last night. But what makes these guys tough is that they kind of continuously move, and they're never in the same spot as they always are. So that actually makes your reads tougher sometimes. When harder to plan for too, because you're planning for a guy being in a certain spot, and then he's 5 feet over from where he is. So then is he my guy? Is he the defenseman's guy? Do I need to be back in this lane? Do I need to be in this lane? So it's a lot of reading, reacting for our PK against those guys, just based on how the intricacies of where they are exactly and how they move.
And I guess speaking to all of that, safe to say, and particularly for you being one of the few players that are contributing on both sides of the special teams equation, penalty killing and power play. Listen, you want to get yours at 5-on-5, and you assume much of the game will be played on 5-on-5, but how impactful do you think this special teams battle will be in determining who comes out between Winnipeg and Edmonton?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a big part of it. And I mean, a lot of the specialty teams is going to be your goaltending too. And obviously we feel like we got the best guy in the league. So, I mean, that's going to be a huge part of it and a good indicator of where this series is going. Obviously 5-on-5 is going to be important, like you said, but, those crucial power plays where you get a goal at the right time, or those crucial penalty kills where you're able to hold them off, late in the third, when you're up a goal or tied, it's, it can change the momentum of the series for sure.
Let me ask you about Hellebuck while you mention it. I mean, we always laugh. I mean, to me, he's the most interesting interview in the NHL. I mean, he seems to be a guy that tells you exactly what he feels, no matter what, and that's not something you get every day. What's he like as a teammate behind the scenes? And just tell us about that level of confidence you and the Winnipeg Jets have when you know that 37's between the pipes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of confidence. I think we got confidence in both him and LB, but obviously with Helly, he's stolen so many games for us over the years. Specifically, last year felt like every night was kind of his night in the crease. So, but as a teammate, I mean, he's a lighthearted guy. Like he's fun to joke around with. I'm lucky enough to skate with him in the summers a bunch. So we have a lot of games and stuff in his goalie sessions, and he's always laughing. He's always having a good time out there, which kind of makes everyone else laugh and have a good time. So he's an interesting character for sure, but super fun guy to be around, super fun guy to have in the locker room.
Andrew Copp with this here. Andrew, timing is everything, especially when you're in a contract year. Congratulations on a career season, 15 goals, 39 points in 55 games. I mean, overall, how would you assess the year for you, and what was it that went so well for you this season?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I think, took advantage of some opportunity. I think, you get on a power play and you get on a power play that's rolling. That's definitely a big part of it. Just felt like I was, I feel like I've been on a trajectory kind of my entire career, just kind of improving every year. And whether that's ice time or whether that's points, I just feel like my role has grown each year, and kind of just took another step, I think. I mean, I think that, this is kind of where I've always felt my game could get to. And, I still feel like there's levels it can, and it's just a matter of executing day in and day out. So I think I've been working hard in my game, and I continued to last summer. And I think I took, some steps and was able to, get rewarded for that and got opportunity. And then it just kind of snowballs, right? Like you get some confidence, and then you get more opportunity because you're playing well. And then it just kind of continues on. So, I mean, I was comfortable in my role. I was comfortable with my line mates, both, whether it was Laws and Appy or Ehlers and Stastny or Scheifele and Wheels. It was kind of up and down the lineup again, but it felt like I had some chemistry with each line that I played with, and I was able to produce at a pretty solid level.
Hey, speaking of that, obviously you are going to need a new contract for next year. Is that something your agents and the Jets talk about through the year? Was that always just left, let's have a great season, play the playoffs, and then figure it out afterwards?
Yeah, I think mostly just kind of let's figure it out. After the season, I don't think there was too much dialogue going back and forth. I know, there's discussions, but they always, surround other players too, right? Like, my agent Kurt meant or represents a few other players that are prospects here or whatever. So, I think there's just comments made back and forth, just very very high level kind of things. But to get down to the nitty gritty, I think that was always going to wait till after the season.
Yeah, well, certainly the focus right now is on game one, I think, for everybody. So we'll hope that it goes well and then that gets taken care of afterwards. Tell us about the 4-goal game. That was, one of the highlights of the entire season so far this year. Pretty special night for you. And this is one of those nights where they start going in and it seems like everything you put at the net turns on a red light.
Yeah, I actually, I kind of got banged up early in the first, and I was like, didn't really feel that. Some nights you have it, some nights you don't. I really didn't feel like I kind of had it that night. And then we get, a couple power plays in the second period, and you get 2 goals. And then no matter how bad you feel before you get 2 goals, you start feeling really good when you get 2 goals. And then, put the empty netter in, and then it was kind of like, all right, first hat trick, like, great game. And then we kept getting put out there, and then we scored the 4th with like a minute 15 left or whatever it was. And that was kind of almost, you were just laughing at that point a little bit. It was just kind of one of those nights where everything was going in, everything was working. So, it was definitely a crazy night and one that I won't forget for sure.
Well, and not only was it one of the highlights of the season, but a huge personal highlight for you as well. What was the reaction from the boys in the room after that? I'm sure everyone was quite happy for you, but everyone said that you're going to take everyone's spot on the top line and the new top gun in the room.
No, I don't know about that. I think I got some heat for not passing on the empty netter, which looking back on it, I probably should. But in the moment, it was kind of it wasn't like there was going to be a lot of opportunity on a breakout. It was kind of like one where I kind of picked off from JT Miller and then just kind of shot it down. So I knew that they were going to try and find me for the empty netter if they had it, just to get the first career hat trick. But just kind of saw I had a lane and when shot it. So I took a little heat for not passing it, but I was, the 4th goal got both my line mates assists. So that was a good way to finish, just so those guys didn't have 0 points in a game where I get a hat trick. That doesn't sound right.
What happened to the pucks? I saw the picture with all 4 of them afterwards. Did you give them to different family members? Are they together?
I think the Jets still have them right now. I think they're putting something together to commemorate the night. So I think all 4 of those pucks are still with the Jets right now.
Well, speaking of commemorating the night, often on this program when we're talking about non-hockey things or whatever, we have gone to NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Remis is a big NBA Top Shot guy, and you have gotten into the NFT game with a 1-of-1 NFT commemorating the 4-goal game. Tell us about this. How did it come about? When did you even learn what a non-fungible token was?
Yeah. Well, one of my best friends from back home, we went to Michigan together. He's a super, super smart guy. Played hockey there. He's kind of been involved in a lot of like the crypto space. He has like his own e-commerce website. It's a lot of stuff that he says that just kind of sounds really good, but you don't actually know what he does. But so he's a few of the guys that played in Michigan with him, we're all kind of doing it together, and I just happened to be the first one that released it. But we got it together, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do this. And he was working with some people that thought it'd be a good idea, and it's not really it was kind of cool to just do together, and something that I think is going to take off for him. Like he got a contract with my agency now, that anybody that uses it that goes through my agency that wants to do an NFT, they get the guy. So it's kind of one of those things that I'm kind of a guinea pig for, almost kind of seeing how it goes, how the 1-on-1 goes, how the the whole design of it works. So I'm just kind of happy to do it with him and do something special together, more so than it is just for me or for whatever it goes for. It's not really about that at all. I think it was kind of something fun to do together, and we've already had other business ideas going back and forth. Last summer we had a big whiteboard that we were putting stuff on. So at some point we were going to do something together. It was just a matter of time. So it was super fun to do with him, and yeah, we'll see what it goes for. I don't think we're holding our breath for anything crazy. I think we were just happy to do something together.
Yeah, well, and people, if they want to find out more information or bid on it, if you go to Andrew's Instagram, which is at Copper94, the link is in the bio. It'll send you there. You can see all it. It comes with a couple tickets to a game, the chance to meet Andrew after a game as well sometimes. So certainly really neat. Have you? Are you crypto guy now? I mean, are you going to be negotiating your next? Are you going to be getting paid in Bitcoin on your next deal?
I don't think so. I've paid attention to it. I don't have any Bitcoin or anything like that. My buddy is pressuring me, every day that I need to get some, or the Dogecoin or whatever. There's always something new going on. So I paid attention to it. I kind of understand it, kind of follow it, but yeah, I think it'll be for me at some point, I'm sure, but not yet.
Andrew Copp, man, it's been great having you on the program. Very much looking forward to Wednesday. Just on the way, did you see many of the first 4 games on the weekend? There was some great hockey, and I have to admit, I'm personally triggered every time I see the building, with all these fans going on with what we're doing right here. But just what were your thoughts about seeing those first 4 games, the quality of the hockey, as well as seeing some buildings that have quite a few more fans than you've been able to play in front of this year?
Yeah, I watched most of the Washington game, watched all of the Tampa Florida game last night. That was a great game. I mean, it seemed like it had everything. And seeing the fans, I think they were somewhat half full, but it made it more enjoyable to watch too, with the crowd noise and everybody really into the game. So that was great to see. I watched a bit of the Vegas game too. They were obviously, I think they were half full too. So it was cool to see, the fans getting into it, which is, especially playoff time. That's what we're going to miss most here for sure. I think they're going to do something with the rink in terms of whiting it out, but it won't be the normal Winnipeg whiteout, which, it is what it is for the circumstances we have right now. But seeing some of those games yesterday was great hockey, and it was just great to see all the fans in the stands and, the energy in the building.
Well, it was great to see, just how awesome the games were to start off. But I can tell you, everyone here with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk is counting down the hours to Wednesday night. I'm sure you and your teammates are as well. Andrew, listen, thanks so much for doing this. Congrats on the great season. Good luck with the NFT. But most importantly, good luck Wednesday into the series against the Edmonton Oilers. And we'll look forward to doing this with you sometime.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it. There he is, Andrew Copp. You can follow him on Twitter at Copp94. And if you're interested in more on that NFT that he's just put out, go to his Instagram at Copper94. Click the link in his bio and you can find out more. Really interesting stuff from a really interesting guy. Great. Thanks so much to Andrew Copp, and big thanks to Scott and the Jets for making that happen. Let's get Remis back in here. Remo, man, this has been an amazing hour, and thanks to everyone that's with us, by the way. If you are with us and you haven't subscribed already, hit that red subscribe button. We'd love to have more of you on with us every day. And do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button. If you're in the chat or on the phone, you just have to close the chat. Hit the thumbs up. The likes definitely help us as well grow the channel. Remo, awesome stuff with Hammer, and we've said this for years. I mean, of all the Winnipeg Jets that we've had on the program, Andrew Copp is as insightful a player that we've had the chance to talk to. Always has time for us, thoughtful questions, and certainly a huge part of what the Jets are hoping to do against the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, for sure. Andrew Copp, he's always been a guy who gives you, as you said, thoughtful answer. Even hearing him talk about defending Connor McDavid or comparing the Tampa power play to Edmonton's power play. That stuff is super interesting. He's not giving you cookie-cutter answers. We wanted to ask about the NFT. Sounds like his friend was into it and bugged him enough, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So it's on his Twitter, on his Instagram. You can bid on it. Not only do you get that NFT, you do get some experiences there at Jets game. You get to meet him as well. So he's like, yeah, sure, I'll try it out. So you had to ask him about Bitcoin. Great talk with him. I'm looking forward to Wednesday. Now I'm fired up. He did say, we did learn he's confident he's going in. I think we kind of figured that, the fact that he was on the show, putting out an NFT the week of the playoffs, similar to Cole Beasley putting out a rap song
yes.
before the playoffs, which you said Cole Beasley would be in, and he was. So I do see the similarities there as well. He did reveal that the Jets are working on something to white out the arena. because we have seen all season they got that blue tarp and a bunch of empty seats. I don't know what they're going to do. Other arenas have done cutouts. The Jets haven't done that. Maybe they'll put a towel or get a white tarp or something. But that'll be cool. Make it look a bit different for the playoffs, because the playoffs, as we said before, it's completely different hockey. You almost forget every year. Right until it's like, oh yeah, this is playoff hockey. This isn't regular season hockey. This is again, it might as well be a different game. So I'm more fired up now for Wednesday after hearing from Andrew Copp.
Yeah, if I hadn't seen any of the first 3 games that went to overtime and just turned on the Tampa-Florida game last night, I would have been going like, what? What sport is this? What exactly are we watching? It's so different than everything we've seen in the in the regular season. Man, it was good. And tonight we have a great slate of games. Why don't we get right to it and get to the cool bet lines of the day? We will focus in on the National Hockey League. 3 games in the league tonight, and we start off with game 2 between the Boston Bruins and the Washington Capitals. Boston minus 137 favorite on the money line, and the Caps plus 123. Remo, get back in here. I'm interested in your thoughts. First of all, on this series so far, Caps winning in OT in game number 1, and the fact that the Bruins are still a pretty significant favorite on the road, despite Washington playing them tight, being at home, and having the 1-0 lead.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough series. I mean, Boston was I thought by some of the stats guys out there, big favorite. Minus 135. I think that's not crazy. So you could go Boston there, but if you want to go with the home dog, going back to back with Craig Anderson in goal. Yes, Huss, he is still in the league.
I couldn't believe it. I had no idea. I'm like, what am I seeing things? Is that 40-year-old Craig Anderson got the first win of the playoffs? What?
Yeah. So he's been good this year in short time. Maybe, he's going to be rested. He hasn't played too much, only a couple games during the regular season.
Yeah, he got into 4 games in the entire regular season.
And it's funny. I mean, the Caps have a lot of pieces from their Cup team, their core guys. They brought in Anthony Mantha at the deadline, paid a nice price for him. I don't know, maybe Caps could upset. I know one of my buddies took a bunch of Caps in his pool and was like, oh crap, they're underdogs. Maybe from you hear Caps Bruins and you don't think that the Bruins would be that favored, but they're deep. They got Taylor Hall. They're top 6 Bruins. I mean, very, very strong.
Now they've got Taylor Hall, which means they should be out in 5.
Bruins Taylor Hall. It's not Sabres version of Taylor Hall. It's
sorry.
How like
new and improved.
Yeah, it's like the Undertaker, how he came in as like the dead man, then he went to the motorcycle guy. It's like he's Bruins.
Now this
Taylor
is
Hall.
American badass Taylor Hall.
Yeah.
with the Boston Bruins.
Yeah.
So that's the early game. Then we got game 1 between Nashville and Carolina. Carolina minus 169. Nashville plus 151, and the series price right now, not surprising, Carolina a heavy favorite, minus 278, Nashville plus 225. Much better chance that Nashville wins tonight's game than wins the entire series.
Yeah, I got a confession. We did our bracket challenge for our Winnipeg Sports Talk group. Thanks for everyone who signed up. We tweeted it out on the weekend. It was on our Facebook page. If you missed out, you got to follow us. We're going to be tweeting some stuff, but I got a confession. I did take Carolina to win the Cup. I could pick Colorado. That's the easy pick, but I don't take the easy way. I like them last year. The question for them is goaltending, but I think coaching, they're very strong defense, got a lot of top-end talent, forward groups, all solid. They go a bunch of lines they can run at you. I really like Carolina. We'll see how it goes. They ran into a buzzsaw of Boston last year, but they should take this one against Nashville.
Yeah, hey, everyone in the chat, throw in your Cup pick, whether you went in the bracket challenge with us or not. Just interested, I know we've got 4 games in, but, who did you take? Who were you thinking? I took Vegas in the bracket challenge, Reem, and
yes.
I could be responsible for cursing them right out earlier in the first round. I think I had Tampa a couple years ago when they dropped out in 4 straight to the Columbus Blue Jackets, so it certainly would not be the first time. But I love Vegas's team. That being said, not getting first place in that division, and not that St. Louis is going to be a cakewalk for Colorado, far from it, but to go up against Minnesota in the first round, a team that did have, I'm pretty sure Minnesota was 5-1-2 against Vegas in the regular season. So that wasn't the matchup I think that they were really hoping for. It was quite apparent after yesterday's game that if they're going to win 4 against the Wild, it's going to take their best to get it. And then if you survive that series, you've got the Stanley Cup favorite Colorado Avalanche presumably waiting in the second round. I mean, it's a killer division to get out of.
Yeah, that's tough. That's what I was saying for Minnesota. They had really favorable odds, I thought, as compared to how good of a team they are. But the problem for them was, okay, yeah, so you beat Vegas in the first round. Well, who you got next? Colorado, probably maybe the 2 top teams in the league, possibly other than Tampa with Kucherov. So that is a tough division, and you have to wonder, will health come into a factor? Because that's what happened last year with Colorado going through that tough division. They got all banged up. Their goalies got hurt. So we will see. The playoffs, as Paul Maurice likes to say, it's a grinder. So it can take a lot out of you.
Oh, there's a lot of grinders coming up over the course of the next couple months. Funky but chunky. I love it. Jets Cup. Tampa overrated. Tampa's the heel team in the playoffs right now.
Oh, I mean, sure. For
like
sure.
They are absolutely the heel team. I mean, I guess there are some Lightning fans out there and people in Tampa want them to win. But other than that, they're the team. As great as they are, I think everyone wants to see them lose just because of the fact that we all know there was some funny business working around that salary cap and the fact that they're able to be up at the cap and, then add Kucherov and Stamkos. Yeah. It's a little iffy. Not going well in some circles of the NHL, but it'll be that much sweeter for a team like Florida if they can win, although that was a heartbreaking way to lose last night. Very tough start to the series for the Panthers.
Yeah, Tampa's like the team who waits till the ref's back is turned and then hits someone with the urn. To bring up another Undertaker reference. Sorry, I've been watching those A&E documentaries on Sundays, so it was Shawn Michaels yesterday. But as far as Florida goes, I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, you're a team that doesn't have the playoff experience. You have you don't even get to overtime. You get a kind of heartbreaking loss like that. I don't want to say it's tough to come back from, but that shows you a team like Tampa that has the experience, that's been to the playoffs, won a cup, been to a cup final. And again, it's all the same guys that they've had for so long. And Kucherov, I mean, he didn't look like there was any rust there with him.
Yeah, he looked like he'd been skating and ready to go for 6 weeks.
No, he was just
Who would have known?
He wanted to wait till he was fully healthy, and it's just a total coincidence that it was game 1 of the playoffs. So
it just worked out for them.
Yeah, I don't know,
great.
it's just timing, Huss. I mean, if the NHL maybe would have started their season a bit earlier, then maybe he would have been able to come back earlier, but they had the late start this year. So, I mean, that battle, who knew the Battle of Florida was so violent and so.
Well, and speaking of that, Sam Bennett just got tagged a game for that boarding play, and that was dangerous. There was a lot of things like that going on last night. I mean, he smokes Blake Coleman right in the numbers from behind. And good for NHL player safety for doing that. More often not, in the playoffs, that's a fine. But I think considering everything that happened coming into this playoffs and the talk around NHL player safety, I think they might hold things down a little more close to the rule of law. And obviously Sam Bennett paying the price. And that's a big loss for the Florida Panthers, Reem. I mean, Sam Bennett was having a miserable season with the Calgary Flames. It's been the exact opposite since he got to Florida. I believe 15 points in a dozen games, more than he had in the entire season with Calgary. He's put on the board in his new home of Florida. I mean, that is a deadline acquisition that is paying off big time right now.
Yeah, the Taylor Hall one you saw coming, go from Buffalo to Boston, and he goes off. And again, that's another guy, like more goals with Boston in that short time than he had all year with Buffalo. Sam Bennett, I don't think I saw this one. They had tried him with Gaudreau and Monahan. He played up and down the lineup. You thought he was, I don't want to say bust, but he wasn't going to be that guy who could play on a top line. And now he goes to Florida. What a revelation. It's been awesome. And I think, it shows you get drafted to a team, and sometimes, it's just luck of the draw. Maybe you get drafted to a team where it's a fit for you. Maybe you get drafted to a team that's not a fit. And good for Sam Bennett. Obviously, whatever was going on in Calgary didn't work out. Having great success in Florida, and they found a lot of guys. Duclair's another guy who's had some success on a cheap deal since Ottawa. But you saw yesterday their stars, Barkov and Huberdeau. I think we can end after the playoff performance, Jonathan Huberdeau, everyone's been saying him and Barkov for years, underrated. They're no longer underrated. They're off the underrated list. We know, everyone knows that these are all-time players. It was like Roman Josi for a while. He was like the underrated guy in the NHL. Everyone knows that he's good. I think you can no longer say those guys are underrated. Everyone knows that they are elite talent.
Line on that final game tonight is the Avalanche minus 312 at home. Blues plus 266. There might be some value there on the Blues tonight. I wouldn't be surprised to see them steal a game early in the series.
It was like 240 on my phone like half an hour ago.
Yeah, well, there's an avalanche of money going in on Colorado. Excuse the pun right now.
Well done.
Listen, the one bit that I wanted to get to on the Cool Bet segment today with the lines was some pretty amazing line movement in this Jets-Oilers series over the weekend. Now, Dustin Nielsen and I did the lock shop on Friday, talked about a number of the series, what we like going into the playoffs, and of course we talked about the Jets-Oilers series. The odds on Friday when we did the lock shop was Edmonton minus 206 and the Jets plus 175. And again, if you're not familiar with how those numbers work, essentially, if you wanted to bet the Oilers, you would need to bet $206 to win 100, to return 306. Whereas with Winnipeg, if you bet $100, you would win 175 off that, and it would return 275. And to be honest, considering where the teams were, Edmonton, very public team, McDavid's season, I wasn't that surprised. The line sort of made sense to me. Well, Remis, in the 3 days since we did that, the Jets number has cratered. There must be a ton of people betting Winnipeg because Winnipeg has gone from plus 175 in the series to plus 130, and Edmonton has dropped from minus 206 to minus 154. I'll be honest, I did not see that coming. I thought maybe the number would come down a little bit, 170, 165. But, I mean, that's about as big a line movement I can remember in anything NHL related in a really long time. And it got me thinking, are people really confident in the Jets? Was it just the best value line that a lot of sharps got on? I'm not sure. But the number's a hell of a lot closer today than it was when we were talking about it going into the weekend on Friday.
Yeah, and that was kind of interesting. We were talking with Andy, the digital gambler, on Friday, and he was saying, Jets minus or plus 175, good value. I think a lot of the guys who have models and analytics, and I've seen a couple of them come out, we've watched the Jets lose 6 in a row to Edmonton. We've seen McDavid torch them, and we're not feeling that good. But if you're just looking at the Jets' overall body of work, as far as a model goes, and you're betting, I saw Dom had the Jets from The Athletic. He had the Jets, I don't want to say close to, I think it was close to 50-50. I saw another person on Twitter who I retweeted from my account. My profile's in the description if you want to see that. He had it closer. So I think, overall the Jets players are much better than they've shown against Edmonton. And, I mean, if they're all healthy, we'll see about Ehlers. We'll see about Dubois. Maybe there's some sharp people out there who say, you know what, I think there's some value here. The Jets aren't as bad as this line would say, and they bet it and it goes up. I think that's my only theory that the Jets aren't. They're much better than what we saw in their 6 games. Is Mike Smith going to play? The question for me is Mike Smith going to keep it up? I mean, the lack of McDavid's torching the Jets. I mean, that's going to happen. He's McDavid, but the lack of goals that the Jets have been able to score in the last the 6-game losing streak against them.
Oh man,
is that going to
Mike Smith was in my head?
Yeah,
he's in my head. What's he like in the head of the guys that their job actually is to score on them right now? I mean, listen, I think that's a great question. And I'll tell you what, if the Jets go out and have a great first period and pop a couple in on Mike Smith early, I think a lot of the good feelings, everything that was built up through the regular season is completely out the window. So, I mean, a lot can change. And, I just think of every time we make all these hot take playoff predictions, and then a week into the playoffs, you look back and go, what the hell was I thinking? These guys are going to be done. I mean, so there's a lot that needs to be determined. The old saying, that's why they play the games. And, there is a real recency bias that goes into odds as well. And I think that was a big part of that opening line that came up with Winnipeg and Edmonton. But it was fascinating to see just how much that line has changed in favor of the Winnipeg Jets over the course of the last 3 days.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you look at the team, everyone knows, and we talked to so many people, they were not as bad as they were during that losing streak. But, maybe here you get over emotional and you overreact. But we'll wait and see. I think it is going to be close. I did take the Oilers on my bracket for when it matters. McDavid's been too good. And as Hamilton said, we're kind of waiting for the Jets to show that pushback, show that fight, and we hadn't seen it. Again, playoffs, very different. But I think there are more unknowns in terms of health with the Jets. Dubois, he could be out. Ehlers, we're not sure again with him. And I think those are the two big ones. And, Ehlers is a huge swing if he's in. You know what kind of player he is at 5-on-5, on the power play, off the rush. He's an awesome player. So we're holding our breath. We're tuning in every morning for their morning skates. I think tomorrow's is at 11 as well. Waiting for the tweets from, Ken Weeb or Murad or Mike, Jeff, whoever's there. Waiting to see a picture, and hopefully we see one of Ehlers in a regular jersey, but it's just been the non-contact.
Yellow, not your color, Nick. Let's let's change it up and get him back out there. Well, as I said, this is going to be such a fun week on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Tomorrow, our first guest, Dustin Nielsen, will join us, my pal from the Lock Shop, but enemies this week as we go into Oiler territory to set up the series with Dusty from TSN 1260. We'll have much more. We'll get Weber on a little bit later on. We've reached out for some more folks to join us to talk about this series, as well as a number of the local guys, which we love having on so much. Man, it really does feel like we're into playoff time right now, Reem. And despite the fact that we're not going to be able to go to games, seeing those buildings with some fans in was a little triggering, yes, but was also a very welcome sight. And yes, normally I'd probably go pull up a seat at a bar somewhere and watch the games tonight. That won't be happening. But the good thing is we've got Jets hockey coming up Wednesday and Friday in Edmonton. Then we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do next Monday, because we go Sunday into Monday, back-to-back games here in Winnipeg. Going to be a very, very busy time. And, of course, also opening day on the Monday, the long weekend, over at Assiniboia Downs. So, and I'll tell you what, from the signs of the numbers that we've had in here, by the way, hit the like button if you haven't already, folks. We're popping in late. You can tell just from the numbers that were here so early and so strong throughout this show that it's different, but there's definitely playoff fever in Winnipeg, and people are fired up to see their Jets take on McDavid and the Oilers starting Wednesday night.
Yes, no question, Huss. and I'm trying not to think about how, I can't have friends over to watch, or how we're not going to have whiteout parties and we're not going to see fans in the stands. I'm trying not to think about all that. It's hard, but it is playoff hockey. We are excited, and it is, as we saw, we saw on the weekend, hard not to get pumped up after watching those games, be like, okay, it's going to be our turn very soon. Yeah,
well, and I tell you what, from that little tease that Andrew Copp gave us, I'm quite interested to see what the barn looks like come Sunday and Monday when the Jets are playing at home. And I know there won't be fans, but maybe whatever they do can be even louder coming back with a nice result. A split, I think that's the goal. You go to Edmonton, you look to get a split and come back, even up. Who knows? Maybe it could be even better. But we'll be all over this series, top to bottom, Edmonton side of things, Winnipeg side of things, as well as the rest of the Stanley Cup playoffs over the course of the next few days. We, of course, have 3 games tonight to get to in the National Hockey League, and then a couple games tomorrow before the main course begins. And, man, long wait for Leafs and Habs fans, too, Reem? I think it seems like forever getting to Wednesday night, and Leafs-Habs doesn't start until Thursday before getting their usual Saturday night spot on Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah, we were talking about the schedule, and someone commented on our Facebook that the scheduling is all about making sure Leafs-Habs is 6 p.m. Central on Saturday. That's the only thing. That's the only thing that it was about, and we kind of missed that. We were saying, about the back-to-backs over the whole focus of the schedule. Let's get Leafs-Habs primetime spot, and that's when it is on Saturday. I had a good laugh at a comment from Mike K. He says, "I'll be wearing my Jets sweater to work on Wednesday by myself in my basement." And that just, we're talking about the lack of parties and stuff, and that's kind of where we are right now, but I did enjoy that.
No, for sure. We're all dealing with it right now. I do hope that as the vaccination numbers keep growing, that we'll be in a better place in the next couple weeks. But yeah, it's a bummer not being able to get together with any friends or at least go out into, public and be able to watch these games. But listen, better to have these games and watch them ourselves than to not have them at all right now. Because, man, if we didn't have this playoff hockey, this would be another real lean time for so many of us here in the city of Winnipeg and Manitoba.
I was actually shocked to hear Andrew Copp. He sounds like he's been watching every game. And
that doesn't surprise me about Copp. The one thing I didn't ask Copp about, Remo, and I'm just thinking about this now.
Was it about the woman who won the 100,000?
No. That was a good tip that I saw afterwards as well. I was too focused in on getting to the NFTs and see if he was going to get his contract paid in Bitcoin.
I was into that one because there was that NFL guy who got it.
Yeah. There's been a couple guys that have done that, and hey, no one's going broke right now if they're getting their hands on Bitcoin. But I wanted to ask him about those goats that were at the rink on Monday. Like, is this some sort of thing? Like, did they sacrifice 2 goats trying to, get good vibes going in for the playoffs, or is there more to it? I'm joking. Of course, they were not sacrificing goats, but apparently Mark Scheifele has 2 goats, and that was a bit of breaking news on the weekend too. What?
Yeah. There they are. He's got 2 goats. He brought them the ice here. Sarah Orlesky asked him about the goats. Actually, has I can bring it up if you want me to play this clip here.
If you've got it, yeah, for sure. Let's. I'm interested, and I'm sure many people are wondering what the heck was with the goats.
For a month and a half, maybe. Got 2 baby goats. Named them after my 2 favorite athletes, so Tiger Woods and Tom Brady. So, it's just fun. They're best friends with Oliver. So, it's just they're fun little guys. They're energetic. They're pretty fun to hang out with. So, brought them to the rink the other day, and they were buzzing around on the ice. So it was pretty cool to see that. I don't think the trainers were too happy because they kind of pooped everywhere. But no, I've been a goat owner for I think a month and a half now.
There you go. We've seen a lot of people, like a lot of couples, being trapped together throughout the pandemic, needing to do something, and they've all gone and got dogs, like pandemic puppies. Well, he already had a dog, needing to step it up. Goes and gets 2 goats.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that I can't stand Tom Brady, but I will give him credit for a pretty cool name for goats of Tiger and Tom. Even I can stomach that. But that's an interesting flex, moving to goats as opposed to puppies when everyone else is expanding, getting dogs.
It sounded like to him it was more of a joke. Sarah, thankfully with these Zoom calls, sometimes they don't let you follow up. Sarah did follow up and asked him, she asked him, why goats? Like, what's going on here?
Just for fun. Just literally just for fun. They're literally just pets. I don't know. Obviously I'm a big fan of Tom Brady and Tiger Woods, so it kind of, it's kind of a little bit of a joke, but they're fun. They're, I have a bunch of space to let them roam around and eat grass and get outside. So, it's a pretty cool thing. Honestly, I never really knew much about them. And then, you start taking care of them and you bring them, you wake up in the morning, you bring them, they're like alfalfa pellets. And, you open the door, they like instantly like baw at you. So it's kind of like they're saying like, Dad. So it's just kind of funny. It's honestly more of a joke than anything, but they're our pets. And, like I said before, them and Oliver are becoming best buddies. So, it's more of just a fun thing than anything.
Been the funniest Scheifele clip I've ever seen. Him doing the Dad. Like I was so not expecting that.
Yeah, I never thought goats were a pet. Nicole J tipped us off Farm 55 on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Farm 55 is the Instagram, and there's a link there. So I don't know too much about it. They've got like a couple acres, and I guess that's where the goats are, and maybe the dog. There's a couple pictures of Scheif with his dog, and then the goats. And yes, Oliver's the dog. Tom Brady and Tiger Woods are the goats. And there's something else coming soon. So I don't know a lot about it other than, and their Insta story has some horses. Hi, neighbors. So I don't know if this is a friend of Mark's or some people that he's working with or they're doing what with, but anyways, we got a little bit of information on the GOATs, Brady, Tiger Woods, and Mark Scheifele. And the one thing that came out to me, Remo, out of that bit on Saturday was just was the smiles, seemingly the good feeling. And I think a big part of that was, getting another win on Friday night, having the top line continue to produce. And like we said, coming out of the game against Vancouver last Tuesday, I mean, the final score doesn't really matter. It wasn't going to change the standings. But going into this series, I think it can be nothing but good to have Wheeler, Scheifele, and Connor get going because, as we've said, that line is going to have a ton of pressure on them to both produce and do their best to, get a saw off with their matchups in their own defensive end.
Yeah, that was, we saw Scheifele in the playoffs before have a great year. They've kind of been up and down. I mean, he did have a great season for points, but he just hasn't. We see it in chat all the time. People saying, he has not looked like that dominant center that we've seen before. So, yes, a lot of pressure on that top line to produce. Connor had a bit of a dry spell, heated up the last week. Maybe they can start feeling good and get their game back and return to Winnipeg Jets playoff hockey.
Everyone's laughing about that dad thing that Scheifele did.
Yeah.
Anyways, nice to see the smiles, nice to see the excitement, and you really heard that from Andrew Copp. It was great to have him on the program, and thanks again to the Jets for helping us set that up. And man, Remo, what a start to the week and a milestone show, episode 50, halfway to 100. And I guess this is a perfect time to thank everyone that's with us live every day on YouTube, people that are listening at home on the podcast afterwards, and helping us spread the word about Winnipeg Sports Talk as we continue to grow just over 2 months in.
Yeah, and we keep getting messages from people who are saying, hey, I used to listen to you on 1290. Glad I found you. A lot of emails, a lot of messages, a couple in our inbox over the weekend. So we do thank everyone who is here, listening on the podcast, on the YouTube, who's liked, subscribed. I know like 35% of the people in chat right now, or people watching this video, haven't subscribed. So the button is like down there, right here. So hit it. We're here every day. Monday to Friday.
Punch it.
1 Central.
Press the button.
And
get red.
And
subscribe.
And if you want to hit, turn on that bell, the notification bell, you will get like push notifications. If you forget what time we're on. That's every day at 1 weekdays.
You got it. 1 p.m. and every day this week we are going to be packed with top to bottom coverage of Jets, Oilers, and so much more. Shout out to our friends out at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. I know they've been paying close attention as they get ready for the season to get you out on the water. Can't wait to get out to Aikens later on. Hit up aikenslake.com or Aikens Lake on Twitter for more information. And Remo, I guess we'll look at these games. Do you have any hot picks? Do you have an upset pick of any of these games this evening?
Is Washington an upset?
Yeah, Washington's plus 123.
I'll go...
I guess I like them more than Nashville or St. Louis.
Yeah, it's like, who would you rather pick, Nashville or St. Louis? I mean, I think Washington's the easy one, but if you want to go tougher, I think I would rather do St. Louis than Nashville. But I will. Yeah,
I think I'm going to sprinkle just maybe a little bit on the Blues at that big number of 266.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think Colorado's going to win the series, but I could see the Blues maybe catching them by surprise in game number 1. So, anyways, we'll see all that. We'll head to Edmonton tomorrow. Dustin Nielsen will join us. We'll have the latest from Jets practice before they head to Edmonton, and much more on the Stanley Cup playoffs. As always, thanks to everyone for joining us. We're just short of 200 likes, so if you're in here, give us that thumbs up. We'd love to get to that number for a great show to start off the weekend. Big thanks to Not Auto Corp, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, our great sponsors of beer, Little Brown Jug. Try the summer lager. It's delicious. Assiniboia Downs opening day a week from today. Breezy Bend Country Club, coolbet.com. And by the way, our Coolbet lines, I will post on our Twitter as well as a bonus code for you to get a great deal if you want to get in and bet with us on the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's about it, Remo. Hell of a start to the week and a great way to get 50 in the books with you here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Yeah, show 50. Wow, I can't believe it's been that long, just over 2 months now. So awesome time of year, playoff hockey, and we will have the Jets starting game 1 on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Great start time. That's
Be like Remis, folks. Get that OxyClean out. Get those whites ready for Wednesday. And it's Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to get things going, beginning, of course, 2 nights from now in Game 1 of this North Division Final. This, by the way, much like the CFL, there's the East Final and the West Final. Mm-hmm. That's what this is right now. It's the CFL of hockey, Reem. We've got the West Final, Edmonton, Winnipeg. East Final
I like
is Toronto, Montreal,
yes.
and the hockey's version of the Grey Cup will be competed for in a best-of-7 in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, they need some trophy for that, I think, for the North Division. So we'll see how that goes. It's going to be fun. 2 awesome rivalries, Toronto, Montreal, Winnipeg, Edmonton.
Hey, thanks again to everyone that's been with us, especially all of you in the chat. Even you, James Wong, who we had to mute. We don't mind you Oilers fans to come in, but you don't need to type the same thing 25 times in a row. Come on.
Yeah, everyone in the chat. I'm usually pretty lax with the chat, but if you're coming and you're openly trolling or typing the same thing over and over again, you're gone.
Or dropping COVID takes. That's the other thing. Like, we don't. This is not the forum for that. Thank you very much. By the way, shout out to GFL Sheriff Gregory Liverpool, who got his shot today. Great to see Greg doing that. All right, we got to get these pods up. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Subscribe, like, spread the word on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Thanks to all the sponsors. Thanks to Jeff Hamilton and Andrew Copp for joining us today. And of course, Scott and the guys over at the Jets for helping us get on the Copp. We really appreciate that, as did everybody in the chat. Folks, enjoy the games tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll head to Edmonton and break down Jets Oilers from the Oilers side of things with Dustin Nielsen. Have a great one. And before tomorrow's show, 11:30 a.m., Dusty and I will fire up a playoff edition of The Lock Shop as well, so you can check that out on our Twitter feeds. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. live on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.